First, I want to say if my voice sounds different or if I cough or sneeze in this review, I just want to let everybody know that right now I am battling a cold and slowly I'm getting better. But finally, part 4 of JoJo is out, and there is no way in the world I'm gonna watch this anime and not review it. And just so you all know, after part 3, I went right to the manga. Of course, being myself, I started over from part 1. And right now, I'm currently on part 6. So even though I already know, what happened in the anime, I definitely have to review it because part 4, I will say, this right here is going to be a pretty fantastic journey. And episode 1 of part 4, it definitely did not disappoint, at least in my opinion. I find it highly enjoyable, and right now this right here has already raised my bar for this season, because personally speaking, last season, to me it wasn't the best, but so far spring here, it started so freaking strong because we have JoJo, now leading the pack. And so episode 1, it starts off, obviously we have this very, very different art style, especially compared to part 1 and part 2 and 3. And so right now we see that when the episode starts off, we have it now, a very normal morning, being played out. And so we see now, a woman hand, being, we see a woman hand, setting a table for breakfast. And so obviously, you would think, that right there would be for her or perhaps for her family. But no, after it was all said and done, all you see now is a bloody hand with some of his arm left, being left on the table, and then you even have blood dripping. So obviously, it's still very fresh, and that right there was just so freaking disgusting. And so then we go to our old friend Jotaro, who has now come to this town of hopefully I'm saying that right, but we see now he has came here looking for a certain person, and obviously he also has some other goals he wants to accomplish, while he's here. And so we see now he was looking for a guy, or more importantly, his household. And so right now we go to another new character called Kochi. Now hopefully I can learn to say these new names correctly, because obviously I do not want to get them wrong. And so we see now Kochi here and Jotaro, they actually bump into each other. And so we see now Kochi, he actually went freaking flying, and we see now how all the stuff out of his bag, came out. And then we had Jotaro with that safe, and not only did he grab all the stuff that was coming out of his bag, but he also picked him up, fixed him up, and we see him now, giving him, his bag back, almost instantly. And that right there was just so freaking awesome. And so we see now Jotaro, he was asking him if he knew, where this family was, or at least if he knew, the neighborhood where they lived in. And so right now, Kochi actually did know that neighborhood. And so right now, he was telling him how a bus will be there shortly to take him to where he actually wanted to go. And so we see now that these bunch of thugs, these much bigger boys, especially compared to Kochi, I definitely feel bad for him, because this guy is so freaking small. Most people can easily, step over this guy. And so right now they were pushing their weight, making him a first year, showing them respect. And so then we see now there was another student who was watching this turtle, and obviously these third or second years, they definitely were happy about that, because this guy who's also a first year should be showing them respect, and not just watching a turtle. And so right now they were getting very upset. But then we have Josuke, who was being surprisingly obedient, because we see him obeying everything they were saying. And so right now, one of the guys, picked up this turtle, and we learn now how Josuke isn't the biggest fan, of reptiles. So obviously, a turtle being that close to him definitely made him feel pretty uncomfortable. And so we see now that when their leader was like threatening him, we see at one point he actually threw the turtle into like this statue, and you see now that like part of his body was like definitely messed up because we could see it bleeding. And so right now when the bus here, had like finally pulled up to actually take them to school, we see now they were like rushing, Josuke to like hurry up and take off the uniform because they were like going to embarrass him. But that's when one of the guys made this very, very crucial mistake. You never, and I'll say it again, you never, ever, 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 you never insult Josuke here. That right there will get you messed up. Because we see now that that this guy went to like being completely obedient to being pissed off to all hell. And so we see now that it's like one punch from Crazy Diamond, and I don't care, I don't care that it said Shiny Diamond. To me, that right there will always be Crazy Diamond. Hopefully, they changed that, because that right there might have been a mistake. But to me, that stand will always be Crazy Diamond. And so now we have Crazy Diamond, punching this guy. All we see is like his nose broken, teeth go flying, and then all you see is like nothing but blood. And so right now he actually went flying into like those other boys, but we see now that he was definitely not hurt permanently, because we can see his face already healing. But this time, Josuke, he actually was like able to like reform his face so that way his nose would be, very different. At the same time, it also changed his voice as well. And that right there was like freaking everyone out. And then all we have is like Josuke picking up that turtle, and that right there was like also healed. And you see him now, putting it, in the water so that way it can like get away. And so right now, all those guys, they were like freaking out because Josuke was like, even though I hate reptiles, you all made me pick up that turtle. And so right now and of course he was like still angry over the insult that they said about his hair. And so right now they all freaked out and was like running away. And so now we have Jotaro finding the guy he was like looking for. And so right now we learn all these details about Josuke, how Joseph, his father, a few years ago, when Josuke's mother was 20 and was going to college, Joseph here had an affair with her. And that right there was like definitely a bombshell to me when I first read it in the manga, because, all this time I was like wondering how in the world does like Josuke, with JoJo, because obviously, Jotaro would like be, way too young to be a father at this point. And so when I read that, Joseph here actually had an affair with like someone, that right there shocked the hell out of me. I'm not gonna lie. And so now we see that we learn actually that when Josuke was like 4 years old, he actually had a pretty bad fever for like 50 days, and no one knew if he actually and no one knew if he would survive or not. And so obviously that right there, that right there correlates with like part 3 and Josuke mom when all of them woke into their stance. But unlike Jotaro's mom, not Josuke's, but unlike Jotaro's mom, Josuke here actually kept his stand where she did not. So that right there, is a very big difference between these two characters who have went to, very similar, situations. And so right now, Kochi, Josuke, Jotaro, they were like all walking, and we see now how Jotaro was like pretty much letting Josuke know everything, that was like going on about, how at some point, Josuke here would like get, like 1/3 of Joseph, inheritance for like being a son and stuff. And so right now we also learned that the Joestar household, it is now in chaos because this affair now came into the light. And then we also have Suzy Q, who is now furious as well because she had learned that her husband actually cheated on her. So obviously that there's also a very big deal. And so while they were talking about all this important stuff, we have these 3 girls who all seem to like Josuke and actually, like want to walk to school with him. Excuse me, like I said, I'm sick here. And so while they were talking, Jotaro, he obviously, wasn't done. And so he was like, hey, Josuke, run these girls off. You can have your stupid talk about hair later. And so right now, Josuke here, he actually took that the wrong way, Jotaro was like assaulting his hair, but that right there was not the case whatsoever. And so right now, with Josuke getting pissed, we finally see, Crazy Diamond, for the first time completely. And so right now, we actually get this brief exchange between, Star Platinum and Crazy Diamond. And so right now it seems that, maybe Crazy Diamond might be a little faster than the Star Platinum, because we see him now being able to like break through his defenses. And so we see now that when Crazy Diamond was like going to get in one good punch, out of nowhere, Jotaro actually appeared behind Josuke and punches him one time to like knock him down. And so we learn now that, for the first time in like 10 years, Jotaro, actually, froze time, but it was like for just 1 second. And to me, that right there, I personally found, very, very, that right there is what I found very, very disappointing, because Jotaro could have this like amazing power if he actually, trained for it, because I have a feeling that, if he did, he could greatly increase the duration of the time frame he could like freeze time in. But for some reason he did not do that. And so right now he could only do it for like 1 second. And so when Jotaro was like able to like scare off all these girls, he was like finally talking to Josuke more, and this time he was like showing the pictures, because we learned now that when Joseph here was like trying to get a spirit photo of Josuke, he actually found like these other strangers as well. And so Jotaro here was like warning him, don't fight him, don't do anything, don't go to the cost, because that right there will be that area will be useless, just run away. And so right now, those two finally had to like go to school, leaving Jotaro alone. But he was like, he was hoping, nothing bad would happen, or Josuke, would do anything, because right now he could be, a very, very, strong potential ally if he could look past, his crazy attitude, because this guy can flip a switch, and go from like 0 to 100, almost instantly. And so right now we like go to this female who was like walking the streets, and then we have this guy who was like pretty much, like wolf calling her. But this guy here was like driving a car that was like letting out so much exhaust. He was making this old woman cough pretty badly. And so right now when this guy was like trying to get together with this woman, he would like take her anywhere. And so right now when she confirmed that, she actually grabbed him by his hair and slammed him right into his car. And we see her, like breaking part of his window and obviously, like denting his car, due to the force. And that right there was crazy, because, that right there will take, that right there would take a pretty considerable amount of strength to do. And so right now we have this couple who came by, and so we see he was like, he would like get that crazy bitch. And so the cop was like, he couldn't do that because that right there was his daughter. And so obviously now, she pretty much got a free pass, because, she was lucky, how that right there wasn't, any cop, but her father. And so right now there was like this man and woman who were like walking, and this big guy, had like bumped into them. And so now, so now these two were like pretty much telling him off. And so we see now that so we see now that when they were like walking away, this guy could like obviously hear them, and so right now he actually wanted to fight him, and so we see him now walking to the guy, putting a hand on his shoulder, and out of nowhere oh my god, and out of nowhere you just see this guy get like so freaking scared. There we go. So afterwards, like after school, we have Josuke and Kochi. They were like leaving together, so we see now that and so we see like while they were walking, we like go to a scene where we have Jotaro breaking up this criminal named Angelo. And so right now, this guy has like been on a serious crime spree since the age of 12, and we see now that one of his crimes was actually running up on someone and hitting him with a bat. And of course, he also, actually raped someone. And don't forget, this what did happen at the age of 12. And so now, for the past 20 years, this guy had been on a major crime spree, and eventually that right there all caught up with him, and we see him now being hanged. And but for some reason though, that right there didn't kill him, because apparently he actually became a stand user. He actually became a stand user at that time, and that right there allowed him to escape from jail. And so right now, with him free, obviously, and of course, being in this quiet town, he can do, whatever he wants. And so right now, when we have Josuke and Kochi walking, eventually, they should see these police cars, driving past them. And so right now, they actually want to check it out. And so we see that the woman who was like with that guy earlier, her body was like all twisted up, and obviously she was dead. And so we see now that there was someone who was like robbing this convenience store. And so we see now that the clerk who took hostage, she actually served Kochi a few times. And so we see now, and we see now that the guy behind it, he was the one who had bumped into that guy earlier. And so right now he was like telling everybody to back up from that car, because that right there, would be, his escape vehicle. And so right now, we see him yelling at Josuke, telling him to get away. But at the same time, he also insulted, him and his hair. And so obviously, that right there was like something he should have never done. And so right now we have Josuke walking up to him, and this guy, got like so freaking pissed. He actually was like going to stab that woman. And then we have Josuke summoning, Crazy Diamond, and not only did he punch the woman, but he also punched a hole, in that guy. And so right now, when he put out his fist, he obviously got the girl away from that man, but at the same time he had healed them both. But with this man though, he actually left that knife inside his stomach, and that right there was just so freaking brutal. And so now with this guy obviously, falling unconscious because of what happened to him, we see now, someone was using a stand, to actually control this man. And until, Josuke, came along, he actually ruined this fun. And so right now, this stand user, he pretty much is going to stalk Josuke now, and be plotting his revenge, because we see now that, that even though this stand, seem to be, kind of weak, he actually is pretty freaking fast, because we see now that when he left that man's body, he actually, went into the sewers, because that right there was how he was able to get away. And so now, after some time passed, we have, Josuke's mom coming home, and their phone was ringing. And so right now, when Josuke had answered it, so we see now that when Josuke answered it, it was actually Jotaro. And so right now, Jotaro was going to talk to him about. So right now, Jotaro was going to talk to him was going to talk to him about those pictures, but at the same time, Josuke here also had, information that, of course, he like, oh my god. And so, of course, Josuke here had information that he also needed to share with Jotaro. There we go. Like, being sick is the worst feeling, because right now, even though sometimes I do messed up, of course, with me being sick, it's definitely, a lot worse. And so we see now that, while they were talking, we have the user of that stand, faking to be like some kind of like milk guy or something, but obviously he has now found, Josuke's home, and we even see now that the title for episode 2 is Josuke meets Angelo. And so right now we know who that guy is, and we definitely know what he can do somewhat. And so we see now that when Angelo was like getting, so upset because, he actually said that like Josuke here had a hot mom, and that made him jealous. And to me, I was like definitely laughing at that somewhat, because I find that very hilarious. But obviously now, Josuke and Angelo, these two walking face to face, is now pretty freaking inevitable. But obviously, episode 1, it was like pretty freaking fantastic. I will definitely be, reviewing this, to obviously to it's over. I'm definitely not going to drop this. Like hopefully I definitely, won't, miss any days, because obviously this right here comes out on Friday. So I do hope that, every week I can have, these, oh my god, well, okay, forget it, because right now, I'm like rambling, so let me end it here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let me know what you guys thought, and please take it easy, and I will see you all next time.